Have you ever noticed that in some situations, the best response is silence? Not the silence of cowardice, but the kind that shows strength and wisdom. Does that sound strange? Maybe you've learned that staying silent means weakness, but the truth is, in certain moments, choosing silence is one of the most powerful decisions you can make. Imagine how different your life could be if you knew exactly when to use the power of silence. You could avoid conflicts, avoid regrets, and even find that much desired inner peace. And the best part? You don't have to be a Buddhist monk to learn this. You just need to understand these 5 situations that can completely change how you live, and more importantly, how you connect with the world around you. Curious? Let's discover these lessons together. The power of silence. Silence, often misunderstood, goes beyond just the absence of sound. It's a deep state of presence, where every breath connects you to the current moment. When a monk retreats to meditate, they don't just seek external quiet, but are cultivating inner peace. The mind stops clinging to the noise of worries, allowing true wisdom to blossom. Imagine allowing yourself a moment of complete stillness amid a chaotic day, where all the answers come from within. In Buddhist tradition, silence is a direct path to self-discovery. While the noise of the world pushes us outward, silence invites us inward, where answers await. You can practice this in simple ways, by walking quietly, observing nature, or even during daily tasks. For example, having morning tea without distractions, just feeling the warmth of the cup and savoring the taste, letting the mind rest. This kind of mindfulness brings change from the inside out. The power of silence also lies in its ability to transform us. Instead of reacting to what's happening around us, silence gives us the space we need to reflect before we act. It's not about avoiding situations, but approaching them with more serenity and peace. After all, how many times have you regretted speaking without thinking? Maybe it's time to cultivate this practice. But silence isn't only for peaceful moments. It can also be a shield in the most intense situations. Silence in anger. When anger arises, silence becomes a powerful ally. Instead of fueling the fire with impulsive words, silence gives us time to breathe, reflect, and respond with wisdom. Monk or not, anyone can try this. The next time you feel anger burning inside, pause, take a deep breath, and give yourself the space of silence. This simple act prevents harsh words and thoughtless actions that could make things worse. Practicing silence in moments of fury isn't easy, but it's incredibly powerful. Imagine in a heated argument, instead of responding in the heat of the moment, just staying silent for a few seconds. This gives space for the mind to cool down and the tension to decrease. Silence creates a distance between emotion and reaction. From this space, you can think clearly and act more compassionately. Try it the next time you feel like exploding. This silence isn't passive, it's active and intentional. It protects us from spreading negative energy and helps us keep our inner peace. Over time, this practice transforms us, shaping a new way of dealing with conflict. Silence in moments of anger is actually a form of transformation. If you find it hard to do this, start small. Choose one moment of irritation and just observe in silence. You'll realize that anger doesn't last as long as it seems. Silence in gossip and slander. Silence can also protect our energy in the face of harmful conversations like gossip and slander. The temptation to join these conversations can be strong, but we must remember that whatever we put out into the world will come back to us somehow. A monk understands that words are powerful, able to either build or destroy. When we choose silence in the face of gossip, we're actually preserving our inner peace and avoiding negative karma. Imagine a situation where someone close to you starts speaking poorly of another person. Instead of getting involved, choose silence. This choice reflects wisdom and keeps you from becoming part of a cycle of words that could harm others. Silence in this context is a form of reflection, a pause that lets us decide whether we want to be part of the problem or the solution. It doesn't mean you're condoning anything. Rather, it's knowing when not to feed into negativity. Practicing silence when it comes to gossip or slander transforms us deeply. Over time, we find that our lives become lighter and more peaceful when we step away from destructive conversations. It's a choice of self-awareness and mindfulness. If you're aiming for more inner peace, try this practice the next time a biased conversation arises. Saying nothing can be an act of strength, and this quiet strength changes how we live and relate to others. But what about when silence could help in more direct conflicts? Silence in conflict. In the heat of conflict, silence is like a balm that soothes the heart. When emotions are high, any word can act like a fuse to make the situation worse. A monk knows that instead of fighting with noise, silence offers clarity and reflection. Staying silent during conflict isn't an escape. It's a way to truly listen to oneself and the other person. This creates space for a more compassionate, less reactive response. How many times has an argument escalated simply because no one stopped to listen? Silence invites us to listen, not only to the other person's words, but to what our own heart is telling us. Practicing silence creates a pause between stimulus and response, and this pause can change everything. Have you ever tried staying silent for a few seconds during an argument? At first, it might feel uncomfortable, but soon you realize the tone of the conversation shifts. Space opens for understanding and empathy. Additionally, silence in moments of conflict has the power to disarm the other person. When we don't respond with sharp words, the tension naturally dissolves, and the chance for resolution increases. This doesn't mean we should stay quiet forever, but that we should choose the right moment to speak and how to speak. Silence is an ally that teaches us to act with wisdom and patience. And if you think silence is only helpful in external conflicts, just wait to see what it does for internal suffering. Silence in suffering. When we encounter another person's suffering, our first reaction might be to say something, offer advice, or try to ease the pain with words. But silence is often the most compassionate gesture we can offer. Being present in silence alongside someone who is suffering creates a safe space for them to express themselves without judgment. A monk knows that instead of filling the emptiness with words, silence provides true relief, allowing the other to find their own path to healing. This kind of silence is a form of respect and empathy. Imagine visiting someone going through a hard time. Rather than searching for the right words, simply be there, fully present. Hold their hand, offer your gaze. Silence communicates that you're there in body and soul, with no need to fill the space with advice. This practice, though it seems simple, is profoundly powerful. As an old Buddhist saying goes, sometimes what others need most is someone who listens, even if in silence. Silence in the face of someone else's suffering also teaches us to be less reactive. By observing without immediately intervening, we learn that each person has their own pace of healing and that it's not our place to rush this process. True compassion is born from understanding that silence is also a form of love. And when we apply this principle to our own suffering, the power of silence becomes even deeper. After all, before consoling others, we must learn to console ourselves. Silence in self-suffering. When directed toward our own suffering, silence becomes a tool of self-compassion. Instead of trying to escape the pain or drown feelings in distractions, silence invites us to sit with our emotions and listen to what they have to say. In moments of suffering, a monk does not seek to escape, but rather welcomes this state with calm. They know that rather than fighting against what they feel, silence allows transformation to happen from within. Next time you feel overwhelmed, try this. Sit in silence for a few minutes and just observe what arises. This kind of silence is a form of deep healing. Instead of rushing to external solutions, silence helps us find answers within ourselves. Imagine, for example, a situation of loss. The first instinct might be to seek distractions, but if instead you allow yourself a few moments of silent reflection, you'll discover that inner peace starts to emerge. Silence doesn't erase the pain, but gives it the space to be felt and understood. By doing so, the suffering becomes lighter and transformation begins to take shape. Practicing silence in personal suffering also teaches us the value of mindfulness. By quieting the mind, we can clearly see what we're truly facing without distortions of fear or anxiety. Over time, this silence guides us to a place of wisdom and self-awareness, where we understand that every challenge carries a lesson. When we apply this, we realize that silence not only calms us, but also strengthens us. The next step, let's explore how silence can be used to meditate on these insights. Now that you understand the transformative power of silence, ask yourself, how many of these situations have you actually applied this wisdom to? And what would change in your life if you started using it from today? Think of the times when anger took over, or the arguments that could have been avoided with just a few seconds of silence. Are you ready to transform your way of living and experience an inner peace that few know? If the answer is yes, start applying these practices today. And to keep learning about how silence, meditation, and self-awareness can change your life, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you'll discover much more about achieving serenity and wisdom through simple but powerful daily actions. Are you ready to take the next step?